Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, here we go. I've hit the button. There's no stopping now. We have to move forward, but I can't wait. I'm so excited. What a way to end a week. Whenever you're listening to this, pretend like it's Friday, because it's about to be Friday in your ears. We're going to have just an amazing speaker. I can't wait to introduce you to him. He's just a powerhouse. Well, who is he, Casey? Who is this guy? Serial entrepreneur, world-renowned brand strategist, thought leader, author, speaker, author of Branding Like the Big Boys. We're going to get into that. Co-creator of the Brand Navigator System, co-founder of Thoma Thoma, Martin Thoma. Welcome to the show, sir.
Great. Thanks, Casey. Happy to be here with you.
Man, this is so good. Brand is one of those things. It's so in the sky. And sometimes people just think it's one thing and it's not the other thing. But we are here today to smash myths. So I'm going to hand you this thing. It's heavy, but I know you work out. So here you go. Ready?
Oh, my.
Okay. Can you grab that? Can you grab that?
I got it, Casey.
Grab
it.
There you
go.
go. Okay.
All right.
That's Thor's hammer. All right. Take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
All right, let's go.
Boom.
All right, Casey, look, here's the thing about branding. Branding is not a marketing communications activity, okay? Branding is a leadership discipline. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what branding is when done well, when done right, when done thoroughly, done correctly, and all kinds of misconceptions around that it's a name, that it's a logo, that it's design standards, that it's an ad campaign or a brand campaign. All of these things are elements of a comprehensive brand leadership program, but they are not branding. So I'll be excited to talk to you about branding as a leadership discipline and the notion of living your brand, which is really our mantra here at Thoma Thoma. And it's our philosophy that the way to do this right, the way to do it well, the way to succeed with it, and the way to transform your organization using this principle, this method or discipline of brand leadership development is treating it in that way as a leadership principle and not as a marketing activity.
Man, so powerful. Okay, right now you have shattered some poor marketers' minds, myself probably included. So we're saying branding it's not in my marketing ecosystem. It's in this leadership. I mean, tell me more about that. Why did we think this was just a marketing thing? Where does this come from, this myth?
Yeah, well, I suppose it starts with the fact that the CMO or the marketing organization is often put in charge of developing the brand, and indeed, marketers have they have a very important role in shaping and building the brand of an organization. But I think the fallacy or the mistake that organizations can make. This may be more an issue with small and middle market companies than and really big companies that have a lot of marketing MBAs and a lot of sophistication in their marketing organizations.
Yeah,
exactly. 4 Ps. Yeah. So this notion that it's a name or a logo and that's branding, it's just misplaced. The fact is that the best branded organizations use their brand to inform everything that they do. The brand is really an expression of their DNA, of their very essence. And so if we're going to develop brands and do it most successfully, we really should come at it from that point of view, right?
Got it. Not from a single department. It's not, making things pretty. This sounds like this comes straight from the top. If this is a leadership thing, does that mean this is the CEO's territory?
Yeah. Casey, I've got a chapter in my book that is about the role of a CEO in stewarding the brand. And our philosophy in the chapter really speaks to that. At the end of the day, the CEO is the steward of the brand and is really responsible accountable is the owner of that. There's plenty of people that are responsible for executing and making things come to life and making things work. But yeah, at the end of the day, the CEO owns the brand, represents the brand, is really the flag carrier for that brand. David D'Alessandro, who was the CEO of John Hancock, wrote a book called Brand Warfare, in which he, as the CEO, he's one of the first Fortune 500 CEOs that came up through the marketing ranks, right?
Nice.
Most of the CEOs come up through the finance ranks,
Ranks,
maybe
right?
sales.
Yeah.
But he made a very strong argument for the role of the CEO as the ultimate steward and the ultimate arbiter of the brand.
Got it. Does that mean they need to create it, or they just own it?
That's a good question. The best brand strategies are not the brainchild of any one individual, but they're the result of a disciplined methodology. I'll talk to you a little bit about our approach. There are many smart theorists and practitioners of brand development. So I'm not going to pretend that this is the only way to go about it, but
true. But this is the hardcore marketing show, and what we say is gospel, right?
So I get to preach. So
you do.
Thank you for inviting me on, so I can share my sermon with the world and evangelize a little bit about brand leadership.
Reverend Thoma, you have the floor.
Yeah. So So is this the domain of a single individual? Look, in some cases, it kind of is. Steve Jobs and Apple might be a famous example. Here's the founder of a company, the mad genius who created the company, the brilliant marketer and leader who shaped the development of that organization, of its products and so forth. And you could really say that Steve Jobs was the author of the Apple brand. Is he the only one that created it? No, heck no. Tribes of marketing people, salespeople, Chiat Day and other ad agencies have helped them, execute on that vision and bring it to life and give voice to it. Right. We're all had their fingerprints on it and helped shape it. But in terms of your question was who created it? So there's an example, but I would say that's a rare example. Mm-hmm. More commonly and in practice, what you're going to find is that it's built by an executive team in concert with marketing experts and communication experts and brand experts. And our practice really follows this trajectory. First of all, this brain trust within the organization, really doing some heavy duty workshopping together, brainstorming, envisioning this first creation of what makes our organization unique. What are the brand attributes and what's the DNA? That is followed by, I guess coming out of that workshop, if you will, is a system of hypotheses. Well, we think this is what makes us most unique and desirable to do business with. We test that against the market. So now follows market research. Okay, is it true? Is it supportable? Is it resonant and relevant to our customers, our target audience? It needs to be both of those. It needs to be a differentiator, and it needs to be true, relevant, resonant. And at the intersection of that, what we'll say the inside view and the outside view, at the intersection of that, we're going to find some attributes that are brandable, that are brand attributes, that are the DNA. And then subsequent to that, Casey, it's got to be codified and clarified, crystallized, and communicated. So this final episode, this final chapter in the brand development journey, and I'm kind of you mentioned the brand navigator. I'm really describing for you the steps in our proprietary process that we've named the brand navigator that will get you to a brand strategy and a brand architecture. So the third phase of that then is synthesizing these ideas that are the inside out and the outside in, and those points of nexus or connection between what our own executive team, what our own institutional knowledge says is special, and what our market research says matters to our customer base and our prospective customer base. Then we're going to synthesize those together into a system of our tools or brand leadership frames. Again, you're going to look at a number of different brand theorists. We're not the only ones. And you'll see that almost all of them, if not all of them, have some sort of a framework or a structure that we're going to try to fit into. You know, Patrick Hanlon, who wrote Primal Branding and runs a very successful brand firm called Thinktopia. Maybe you've had him on your show.
Yeah.
He'll be a good target for you. But he has a system that he's built that is, it's not the same, but there are some similarities.
Not as good as your system. You heard
good,
it here.
Not as good. But he's a smart guy too. So really,
Right.
at the end of the day, right, we've got to have a structure,
Framework.
because we have to have
yeah.
a framework, because now we're going to have a plan, basically a brand plan or brand strategy we have to execute against. So everybody's got to know what the core is in order to execute against it.
Got it.
So, no,
Structure.
so kind of back to your question, does the CEO create this? In rare circumstances, maybe in those circumstances when the company is the complete expression of the genius of one single founder. Yes. But in most instances, no. This is something that is built by a team, and we got, we've got, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads are better than 2. We've got a lot of, thoughtful, smart, innovative people that are really putting
Right.
their minds against this and their shoulders in order to develop something that is going to be actionable and is going to be
Right.
executable.
Yeah, and bouncing off the market, so we're not just in a bubble thinking that we're all that, and maybe we aren't, and kind of bounce that. But you helping answer that, or you answering that, really helps me out, because I think sometimes the challenge at the higher levels is, God, I don't even know how to do this.
Right.
I'm supposed to, but it's hey, you own it at that highest level.
That's right.
Lead your team and bring in the experts, bring in Thoma, bring in you, read some
That's right.
books, like bring in the experts, do the work, but you don't have to be the one answering, right? So you just own the result and then bring in who, not how.
Yeah, for sure. The CEO's role is to say, we need to have a crystalline, differentiated, compelling brand position, because we recognize that a brand is an asset, and it's going to, I call it move markets. A good brand drives revenue, drives customers, it drives talent. A good brand drives all kinds of favorable outcomes in an organization that all CEOs want for their organizations. They want to acquire and retain the best talent. The best companies have the best talent. Companies with the best talent win. It's pretty damn simple. They want to get more customers. They want to get an outsized share of the customers. They want to steal share from their competitors. They want to win in the marketplace. Brands help them do that. It's been proven. We all know it intuitively. We can look around and see.
Right.
We can see it at work. It looks easy, but it's not.
Right.
For those companies that are really good at it, they make it look easy because they're doing it well. They're doing it right. And we want to drive more profits to the bottom line. Well, we can do that. We can do that with a strong brand. So the CEO is really the owner of the accountability, and is going to be the driver. And at some point, a brand is about what you are and what you're not. A brand is is about what you say no to as much as what you say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great story told about Herb Kelleher, founder and CEO of Southwest Airlines. In the early years of Southwest Airlines, the executives were in a room, and they were finding that they were getting the crap beat out of them by their customers. They were pissed off that all Southwest would feed them on the flights was peanuts. So this was in the early days of discount airlines, and people who flew were used to getting, meals or like good food, not just peanuts, like chimpanzees.
Right.
And their customers were complaining. And so here they are in the executive suite, and the executives are reporting this to Keller, and they're like, "Look, we got to at least serve like Snicker bars or something. Our customers are up in arms." And Keller famously said, not just no, but hell no. Do you have any idea how much it costs to fly, millions of pounds of Snicker bars around the country on our airplanes? We're not going to do it, because then we cannot be Southwest Airlines, and we cannot adhere to what our promise is, which is to democratize the skies, which is to compete with air, as an air carrier with trains and buses and automobiles. We're not competing with United and American and TWA and Continental, whoever was in flying back then. Most of them are gone. But we're competing with a bus ride across the country. So no, we're not going to do that, because that's not who we are. So yeah, a brand becomes just as much about what you say no to as what you say yes to. And that, sometimes that, that's going to be at the CEO seat to make those tough calls.
And man, there's so many things to dive in. I'm so glad we're able to have this conversation. You said something earlier about really in step one, that brain trust gets together and starts thinking about what makes us unique. I've seen this on forums, different places, and so many people, I've done this too. They pay like lip service to the idea of unique. Well, we're easy to use. Like, is that unique? Are other people easy to use too? Can you talk to me about like what actually is the unique that you're looking for?
Yeah, that's hard, because unique by definition is I'm the only one, right?
Right.
The no one is like this. No one is this.
Right.
That is a high hurdle to jump over as a business, because there are always imitators. There are always, like organizations. And even in those cases when you are the first and only, in a year, if you're successful, there'll be 2 or 3 more just like you. Right.
Right.
I just bought a Dyson vacuum. I'm like, okay, this is really this, like, nobody makes a Dyson but Dyson.
Yeah.
But then I go to my brother-in-law's condo for an overnight, and he's got something in the closet that's got another name on it, and it's just like, it's got the same, all the same features, and just a different color and a little different shape. So if you are successful as a company, you will have imitators. And so unique is a high bar to jump over. But that is the point. That is really the point of this. And it's not easy. So Casey, what we do in our discipline, in our brand navigator discipline that you mentioned earlier, is we look at all the attributes of the company. And then we put them through a filter that we call the USA filter. USA stands for unique and sustainable competitive advantage. So unique, what is the domain that is most unique, or domains attributes that are most unique, most differentiating about your company, your product, your service? What is sustainable? What is the area in which you have leadership and differentiation, in which you can sustain? So,
I get you. Like, you have someone on the team that's really good at X, Y, and Z, but if they leave, does that mean your uniqueness is just gone?
Correct.
Yeah.
And can you sustain it? Can you sustain leadership? So let's think about technology as a differentiating point. Let's say you're a bank.
Yeah.
And what you think is your most differentiating thing is your special technology.
Is money. You're like, no, everyone's got it.
It's not money. It's not your free checking, right? It's not your CD rates. That's a commodity.
Tech.
Yeah.
Right.
But let's say we think we've built the best technology. Well, the challenge with that is that, technology is something that is often going to the highest bidder, right? Some other body or bank can come in and spend more, be hungrier, capitalize better, whatever, have better technology. Yeah. So it's hard to maintain or sustain as
defend it, right?
Competitive
you're defending your position. Yeah. Okay.
You're defending. And so if you're going to build your brand on it, Casey, you want to be able to know that you can maintain and sustain leadership. It can't be taken away from you by somebody who's hungrier, richer, faster, better capitalized. And then finally, so those two domains, unique and sustainable, are really domains that that lie within the organization or within the product. And the third that I mentioned is a competitive advantage, which we could also just call a reason to do business with. Like, okay, so now this is the external domain, the customer domain, right? What do they want? So if we're like really enthralled with our customer service and our phone answering capabilities, for instance, we go through this whole exercise. It's like, well, we answer the phone with a real human by the third ring. Well, that actually would be a differentiator today, wouldn't it? For many companies.
Yeah.
Okay. But then let's go check out with the market. What does the market want and expect? Well, we find out that they want us to answer the phone before it rings. Okay. Now, so that's not a brand attribute, right? It's not a USA. We're not going to build our brand on that. They'll find something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, this notion of unique is important, but we create some higher hurdles by also saying, look, it also has to pass these other filters or pass these other bars, which not only must it be unique, it must be sustainable. We can maintain that uniqueness and that leadership in the market, and it must be a reason to do business with. Or it's really a so what, it's just a copy point. Interesting. Right. And what we find is that every organization has a lot of copy points, right? Every product, every service, every company has a lot of copy points. But all those sales arguments and, copy points you put in your marketing piece and your website are really just supporting and buttressing what your core is and what you're going to hang your hat on, which is your brand DNA. So we're always looking for, and when we're building the strategy, when we're building the core engine for brand leadership, we're looking for those USAs or that USA. One thing that you'll find it often in going through this exercise, if you will, is that, hey, we're, really, if we're really honest with ourselves, we're 75% of that. Okay, cool. Well, if that's your most differentiating thing and you're 75% of it, okay, what can you do to get to 85, 95%? Now, so if we have to, we're going to claim it and we're going to lean into it. But now you can see how brand becomes a leadership principle, right? Because we're not there yet. So we have a client that is an HBCU, and historically Black college and university, who, when we did this work for them, they're like, well, we found out what our unique attributes are, and we found out what our market, our alumni, our prospective students, our student body really value. But when we put it all together, there's not any there, right? We're not it yet. Yeah. So to the benefit, really, I've often given lots of kudos to this president who said, okay, I get it. I see where we have to go. I see where the puck is going to be. It's over there. We need to skate over there where that puck is going to be. And indeed, he did. He organized his cabinet, and he organized the communication. He organized the impetus around not we are this today, but we are becoming this.
Gotcha.
And we will become this. And they did. And they, within the next couple of years, they saw the enrollments inflect up for the first time in a decade. Their enrollment started growing. Wow. The average GPA of their entering students inflected up. They received $1 million grant to help create an institute, and they received another $1 million grant to create housing. And so they got this fabulous upward spiral going, built on this unique identity. They even got the attention. This was some years ago, because Obama was in the White House. They got the attention of the Obama White House, who sent one of his emissaries down here. And he said, this is what HBCUs need to be doing. They need to be carving out a unique, differentiated identity. They need to be executing against that identity, and they need to be using that as a marketing lever or principle or magnet, right? So, yeah. So when we do this well, and when we think about brand as a leadership discipline, we can also recognize that it's okay if we're not all there yet, right? Because, a brand is kind of like to me, it's like a garden. It's like your yard. Like, are you ever done with your yard, landscaping your yard?
Nope.
I got a plan. I kind of put the bones in,
That friggin' grass grows back every time.
Year after year after year, I keep grooming and manicuring and developing and shaping and, fertilizing and nurturing. That's your brand.
Yeah.
That's your brand.
And if it's not growing, that's also a problem. So either way, you got work to do.
That's right. You got some diagnosis to do now. There must be some moles, eating the roots, or some grubs in the grass or something.
Something's going on. Some creatures are eating your yard. So that's great. You answered really a question before I could even ask it about the ongoing development, to point the flag or point the finger. We're going here. This is a home run. Right. It's happening. So I love that you can do that. And that's where leadership comes in. I'm even challenged though, thinking about, man, how do you pick, USA, great guiding acronym, but do you just start brainstorming? And have you, from seeing all the ones that end up being unique, have you figured out a certain list of 15 of them that always tend to be like the thing? Or is it just more nuanced than that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, it depends so much on the entity. And, we work, we work across many different industries. In terms of the industries that we address, we're more generalized. We have a specialized service, but we address many industries. Some organizations will be really deep in one industry. So they've got all these patterns and they might be able to answer that question a little better. Right. Within higher ed or within banking or within certain industry, it comes down to these few things. But what I think the answer to your question is really lies in the diversity and the creativity of businesses in the U.S. Our work is U.S. based, but we can say in the world. So really the answer becomes there are no pat answers. The answers are as diverse and unique as businesses are, as products are. I will say this, we find that there are some patterns against which organizations can think about branding. It might be process. Often it's the unique process that an organization has. It's really the core of the brand. It might be some product attributes. We think, let's think about Volvo and safety. Right. Volvo really, look, if you look at the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration data, Mercedes is just as safe as a Volvo.
Is it? Yeah. Interesting. Or a Subaru, right?
Or Subaru. Side impacts, front impacts, all this stuff, they're all about the same in terms of safety, but but Subaru has a different brand focus, and Mercedes has a different brand focus, and BMW has a different brand focus.
100%, right? You don't buy a Mercedes for safety.
Right. You don't buy a Mercedes for safety. It's nice that it's a safe car.
It's nice.
It's got all these safety features, but the brand is delivering different emotional benefits.
Yeah.
And so process, maybe product attributes, maybe people or service. We've been successful with certain service organizations, keying in on the dimensions of their service, which is really rooted in their team and their culture. And I'm eager to talk to you about the intersection of brand and culture, because I think that's just a really powerful frame for people to understand and to activate.
Yeah.
And to turn their brand into a competitive weapon, particularly in service businesses. Denise Zoe, I want to say, has written a book in the last couple of years that describes, I think she's got 8 or 9 different kind of frameworks.
What's her name?
For brands.
Denise? Denise Zoe?
we're gonna have to come back to that.
Yeah, no
We'll say
worries.
yo or yon. And the name of the book escapes me right now, but we can put it in the, we can get, I'll look it up and we can get,
Yeah, we'll put it in
we
the
can get in
notes
the
or
show
something.
notes. Okay. Because
Yeah.
she's done a really nice job of evaluating and essentially identifying some patterns that brand strategists are able to use to think about different ways of framing their brand and
Mhm.
building their brand.
Was it Denise Lee?
Denise
Yon?
Lee Yon. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Denise Lee Yon. Yes. She's done a really nice job with that recent book. I think she published that within the last couple of years of identifying, and it really kind of answers the question you were asking. Are there certain dimensions?
Got it. So
So,
Denise has some dimensions we can look at.
yeah, she does. She's got a
great.
she's got a nice study on that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I love to get to culture next, but before we do that, one more question. The idea of, we maybe learn from Denise and some of the things you just described in terms of the uniques, sustainable ones, but then
Right.
it's time to talk advantage. You said you were creating hypotheses and hypothesize. We're testing them against the market.
Yes.
How do you test them against the market? And I'm going to say that I understand that there's a whole study to it, but if you had one or two tips in terms of how you ratify that there is a market need or desire for all the crazy shit you just came up with, right? Like, and you have to bounce it off these people. How do you present it to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. In our practice, it distills down to primarily a couple of approaches. We use I call them focus conversations. They're focus groups of one, and these are fairly short conversations, usually 20 minutes. Usually schedule 20 minutes. They might run to 30, but in a guided conversation with people that are knowledgeable about the brand and the company, the product or service, often their customers, or I call them meta observers. They would be people that are knowledgeable about that industry landscape. If it's banking, if it's a bank, then a meta observer could be the executive director of the state banking association or the national banking association. It could be the editor of a banking publication, or maybe a business publication. So these are people that are looking at the whole landscape and really see how this particular product, customer or company fits into the landscape. And then customers are important because they're going to help us answer the question: are these hypotheses true in their experience, and are they meaningful in their experience? So is it resonant and relevant? Now, we can also test this with people who are not customers. In some cases, people who were prospective customers but chose to go somewhere else. So sometimes we will look at, let's say a subset of lost deals. Okay. Hey, these are people that interviewed with us over the last year, but they went to one of our competitors. Okay, well, let's do. So we do this compare contrast, and we have a focus conversation instrument. So we have a consistent conversation guide that we're going through.
You have like a script.
Yeah, we have a script. Yeah,
it's the same questions.
Just like a focus group moderator would have a script. Let's say you're doing 2 or 3 or 4 focus groups. You ask the same questions to all the groups, right? So that you get. So that's what we're doing with these focus conversations. And there's a tremendous amount of juice that comes out of these. Now, these are very qualitative. It's not a statistically projectable study.
Right.
Though, Casey, this is interesting about market research. Just a little digression. I saw a study that was published by an academic who found that if you had a sample size of 30, you had essentially a large enough sample that would be equivalent to 100, 400, 1,000 in terms of its projectability, which kind of surprised me because I'd always seen the data that said, your standard deviations, a sample of 100 or, X amount, confidence level of plus or minus 7%, all this stuff that you see that come out around surveys. So I was a little bit surprised by that. And then I compared it to our own experience. And I looked back at dozens of studies we'd completed, and I found that when we had 15, 20, 30 one-to-one conversations, the major themes were always consistent with our 100, 200, 400 sample size internet surveys. So that takes us to the second type of validation instrument that we use, and that's a standard statistical survey. Back in the day, these were done with phone surveys. Now they're largely done with internet tools, and Survey Gizmo, Survey Monkey, any of these kind of tools are going to work. And so here we will, through an internet tool, we will survey again customers, sometimes not just customers, but individuals within a marketplace.
Sure.
The study is designed to help us get to the answers we're trying to get. One of my mantras, Casey, is you can't get the right answers if you're asking the wrong questions.
True.
So,
True, right?
Corollary to that, of the wrong people. Yeah. So, an internet survey, and these are the two of the primary tools that we use, and typically we like to use those in combination because we want to have one statistical set of data and we want to have one set of data that's qualitative in nature. What really helps the brand planners is that the statistical data gives you some sense of confidence. You're going to spend, thousands to millions of dollars executing this brand strategy over the next 2, 5, 10 years, right?
100%.
Really, you want a strategy that's going to carry you for a decade, longer. So you're going to spend a lot of money. Well, let's get the confidence that these investments are smart investments are going to take us where we want to go. So we get the statistical data that gives that confidence that if we make these investments in this brand in this way, we can be successful with it. And then the qualitative produces a tremendous amount of juice for the narratives and the nuance. So we really love combining these two, the qualitative and the quantitative, because those interviews always produce, really evocative, provocative, insightful, persuasive language. I think about one of the banks that we worked for and built one of these brand strategies for, and one of our tools in our system is the brand principle. It's really the rallying cry for the organization. What's the core ideology of our brand, and what do we want our own people to really grasp and charge forward? If the CEO's meeting everybody at the front door as they file in, he's patting them on the back. If that's even okay anymore to touch people. He or she is rallying the troops with this mantra. That's the brand principle. And in one of the banks that we developed this system for, one of the interviewees said, what really works about this bank, what differentiates them is it doesn't matter what kind of challenge I'm up against. I can come into the bank, sit down, pull up a chair. They're going to roll up their sleeves and really solve this problem for me. I know we're going to get to yes, we're going to get to a solution. So the mantra of pull up a chair became the rallying cry.
Yeah.
Now what
Love that.
What CEO or CMO or brand consultant sitting around would have said, hey, our brand principle is going to be pull up a chair. What? What does that mean? Well, this is an idea that came out of the mouth of one of their customers that resonated within the bank. It's like, yeah, that's how we work.
Yeah.
That's how we work. And now that is their one of their brand mantras. And when you go around the bank, you'll hear people say, hey, just come in and pull up a chair. Look, we can solve this. You just sit down and pull up a chair. We'll get it done. So it becomes part of the language, right? It becomes part of the self-talk. And So anyway, I'm kind of digressing now. Your question was,
No, but no,
what sort of tools
yeah.
do you use to help give
Yeah.
you confidence and validate? Those are good ones. There's all kinds of market research that can be done, that can be, fancier if you so desire. But these two tools work really well, day in, day out in terms of testing those hypotheses and validating them.
Yeah.
If like I said before, you might find something you thought would work, but you end up throwing them out because they're just not that important, or
Right.
they're not true. Okay, all the CEOs think it's this, all the C-level execs think it's this, but you really get in there and the customer's like, well, that's not really the way I experience this organization. All right, well, if we try to go to market with that and try to brand that, we're probably going to fall on our face, because the market is going to say that's BS. That's not true. I don't experience it that way. So, let's don't make a mistake and try to build it on something that's not really true, not meaningful, not valid. We have found in very few instances that the leadership team doesn't have a really close thumb on it, Casey. Doesn't really closely understand their core and their core value proposition.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt maybe once or twice in our whole career we found that there were some notions in here that were really kind of off base. And
yeah,
and
I do
kind of
wonder
restored
though.
it.
I've seen some really crazy companies, so I do wonder if that evidence is self-selected because they're smart enough to work with you. They're probably
Maybe
smart enough to know that
Yeah,
they should.
yeah.
I'm sure there's some pretty dumb companies out there that they think that bank. You bring up what a great story about the chair, because otherwise, what differentiates you? I mean, it's just another place to pay an ATM fee after all.
One of the most commoditized businesses in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're, banks are service organizations. If you really think about it, at the end of the day, it's not that much about the financial services. Yeah, that's the product,
Right.
but there's nothing differentiate. There's zero differentiating in the product.
Yeah.
And the differentiators are generally how it's delivered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that becomes people and culture and
Totally.
service, right?
Totally get that. It reminds me of me trying to call the bank that have with my my business, and God, I can't get a hold of him. I fill out forms, trying to open a new account, fill out things. We have to start a smoke signal to get your attention.
Yeah.
Email, I finally just have to call the place, and I go down there to get an appointment, and the person I had an appointment with is out on vacation that day. I'm like, well, then how did I get an appointment? Right.
Yeah.
So, and then you contrast that with pull up a chair, or I remember the old days of like Charles Schwab was like, talk to Chuck,
Right.
It sounded kind of tongue in cheek, but the whole point was call them. They're not
in a personal relationship with you.
Yeah. And you call them and they're like, yeah, hey, what's up? How you doing? They're not in a rush. Oh, I'm in Colorado. Nice to meet you. Like, no rush to get you off the phone. And I could see that was a real different to the bank that was trying to chase you off and reduce costs.
Yeah. Think about, I like to think about Southwest Airlines now when I think about brands, because, Southwest really built a great brand as a discount carrier, as a carrier. And, if you've shopped for airfares, you know that Southwest is no longer the cheapest air carrier available.
Right. Like Spirit, I think, is like the way cheaper one now.
Yeah, like Allegiant, Spirit, there's some way cheaper discounters, and many of the legacy carriers like American, Delta, United, they'll often have cheaper fares.
Oh yeah,
than Southwest. So Southwest really isn't. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even call Southwest a discount airline anymore.
So, what would you call them?
I don't know. It's like it's mainstream. But what differentiates Southwest is not.
Right.
It's not low prices, which is what they built their business on initially. What differentiates Southwest is the experience you have flying, and the demeanor and the interactions that you have with their people, and the spirit, the spirit of the place, right? And hey, some people probably don't really go for that. Brands are different strokes for different folks, right? Not every brand is for everyone. If it were, then it wouldn't be a brand.
Right.
But if you think about how the Southwest Airlines brand has evolved, you'll recognize that it's, it's moved along a trajectory as the business has done so. And so the brand still serves the organization, still serves its customers, because it does help us understand what this entity is and how it's different, and how we can relate to it. It also, I think, Casey, it brings, to me, it brings up the point that I think is really valid to make. And that's it. A good way to understand a brand, I think, is the brand is the emotional connective tissue between the thing and its customers, between the company or the product or service and its customers. And as a result of that, we really need to think about brand leadership as developing stronger emotional connectivity to our customers.
Yeah.
And again, this is where I believe that the value derived from brand development is in brand leadership, and is in cultural development, and is service development. We codified this into our little phrase of live your brand. We really think that at the end of the day, what the brand leadership organization is really focused on is living our brand, which really means everything we do is an expression of our brand, right? It's not, and this kind of takes me back to my initial premise, my mythbuster premise that you started us with. Branding's not the logo or the name or the ads or the website or the visual graphic standards, all these things that we often, hear, when people talk about branding, they're often talking about those things. It's not that. It's everything. It's everything your organization does, right?
Yeah.
It's just constantly, every organization is constantly sending off signals.
Right. Right.
It's just like us as humans. Like say 70% of our communication is nonverbal communication. Right. So same thing with brands. 70% of it is not all the planned stuff. It's
all the marketing, all the
what stuff that goes through all the approvals, right? All the carefully checked and approved and sanitized and refined. That is not what is building your brand so much as what your customer service agent said to me on the phone just now.
Right.
Or how you set up and signed off your email communication. It's just, like all these things are just constant little micro signals of the brand. And they're all being expressed from the culture and the training and the spirit of the place. So the brand leader and the Live Your Brand organization is intentional about shaping that, right? Guiding that and shaping that.
Right. And this is where it has to be, to your point, bigger than the marketing department. Because when I went into that bank for my appointment that I had formally booked an appointment with this person, and they're not there, not because they're sick, but because they had planned to not be there, I'm just thinking, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's a disconnect.
And marketing has no control over that. That's operational. That's
no control.
Some other thing. Marketing can't control everything. It has to be every department living their brand, knowing that they all matter. They're all spokespeople.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And that becomes a matter of the value system of the organization.
Right.
Training, communication. I think at some point we're gonna be able to get into some of that a little bit, because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Again,
well, let's talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into that. Yeah, great. So let's go there. So yeah, I want to, Casey, I want to talk about the nexus of brand and culture. We've built a lot of thought around this and capability around this, because we have found that it is so vital to building a really effective and differentiated brand strategy. What ultimately is going to influence the organization to treat you differently than it did, right? You had a deleterious brand experience. The brand experience you had took a deposit out of the emotional bank account. And if you
100%.
give enough of those to Casey, he will leave. He
Yeah,
will go find someone who will treat him better.
totally.
Now, you'll do that with cars, with coffee shops, with restaurants,
Anything.
with hospitals, just anywhere. Okay. And it doesn't matter if I run $1 million worth of ads at you.
Right.
If I bombard you with 10,000 Twitter posts and Instagram posts,
Right.
all heavily curated and specially prepared by my most genius art directors and designers and copywriters, doesn't matter. You're going to leave.
Yeah.
You're going to leave. So what does the brand leader do to help make sure Casey has a great experience every time he encounters the bank? I would offer that the brand leader builds a powerful culture driven by core values that are anchored in the brand. And we spend as much time and money influencing our own people and developing them, culturally and value-wise, not just skills training, and not through edicts and compliance, but through winning their not with carrots, not sticks, through winning their hearts and minds, through enrolling them in this common enterprise that is our business, and enlivening the spirit of the place and the culture of the place, so that Casey, that cannot happen.
Yeah.
Like in a well-branded bank that's living its brand, that it's hard to say can't happen. It's just so much less likely to happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not likely, because this is an organization in which every individual is passionately devoted to the customer.
Yeah. They're all in. All of them are on board.
All in.
Yeah.
We want our customers to love us. We know what drives customer love, and we exude that. We exhibit that, and that comes through in our emails. It comes through in our phone greetings. It comes through in how our technology platform is configured. So that if somebody sets at an appointment, by gosh, they have somebody there to meet them.
Right.
And so, what would happen in a live your brand organization? Well, if that sort of a disconnect did happen, there would at least be some kind of a recovery mechanism.
Right.
There'd be like a plan B mechanism. So what we see is really critically important is that brand living companies develop a system of mantras. We, in our brand navigator, we use the brand purpose. We use the brand principle, the purpose. Why do we exist? Why are we here? Look, it's not just to make money. Yes, every business has to make money in order to stay in business, but we exist here for some higher purpose. Right? We're not just here, we exist here to create some value in the world, to make a difference. So we got to get clear about what that unique purpose is. The brand principle, we've talked a little bit about that. That's the rallying cry. That's our true north. That's our guide star, right? So that brand principle, brand personality. We think about brands like humans. Brands have personalities just like humans do.
Yeah.
And it needs, your brand needs to have a narrowly bounded set of personality traits. You can fall, we all sort of act outside of our core personality sometimes,
Right.
But by and large, we're true to form. So,
Sure.
personality traits. So the brand expresses itself in certain ways. Core brand values are core values.
Yeah.
So many companies for many years have, focused on mission, vision, and values. And what we want to do in developing brand leadership is align our core values with our brand, so that these serve each other, right? And then the core values become incredibly powerful resources and tools for helping to shape
Right.
the organizational behavior.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah. There's a reason for it.
They have a positive impact on the company logically and emotionally.
Exactly. Think about your own service. Think about your own self. We humans, rarely, if ever, act outside of our core values. You know,
Mhm.
if your value is stealing is wrong, you
Mhm.
don't steal.
Right.
You know, like you don't pick up $10 on the sidewalk and put it in your pocket. You try to find the even, that's not stealing really. That's finding something. But if the stronger your values are, the more you adhere to certain behaviors. So we all act out of our behaviors. And organizations that have powerful, clearly defined, and regularly reinforced value systems have humans
Yeah.
that act out of those value systems. So when I'm part of this organization, I am going to act on those values. I am going to act in certain ways.
Right.
So core values, another internal and external tool that's quite helpful is that we call it the brand story, the creation myth. It's
Yeah.
really a little story that uh, that 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 codifies and illustrates these other dimensions. It's when I draw these, I stack them all up on in a tier, like in a pyramid, and then I have an umbrella over the top of it that is the brand story. So the brand story is kind of this overarching tool that that helps explain us.
Love this, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely love this.
yeah.
And then all of this tells me, like, what if that bank I'd walked into was a pull up the chair bank? And then, yeah, with the CEO brain, you're thinking, okay, well, that means every department knows that we're all about pulling up the chair, which means IT. Let's make sure that if someone's on vacation, we're digitally covering their back on any of the chair appointments. And let's track and measure those appointments.
Yes.
And when they come in, we'll have all the signs. But even if you didn't have signs, what's interesting is the person, I was like, where's so and so? And I think it was actually the bank manager was like, oh, they're on vacation, right? Well, this wasn't a pull up chair event, but if it was, the person would be like, hey, let pull up a chair. I'll talk to
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Yeah, what are
I'll
you here
talk
for?
to you.
You had an appointment with Martin? Oh, Martin's out on vacation. I'm sorry about that. What can I help you
Pull up a
with?
chair. I got you.
What are you here for? Yeah, I'll
People
take care of
fighting
it.
over you. I know. I got you. I got you.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're
Exactly.
all trying to pull up a chair.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'll come on
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
It'd
Yeah.
be-
That's it. That's an
such a different
organization.
experience.
Yeah. That would be an organization living its brand
Living it. Yeah.
and living out that core value of however we state it, pull up a chair or serve, be a servant leader or,
Yeah.
heart first, feet second, whatever. There's all kinds of, there's just a million different ways of describing these uniques and bringing them to life. What I like to think about, Casey, is that these little narratives that I just described or these mantras, to me are like the facets of a gemstone.
Mm.
So if your brand were the gemstone, then this brand purpose, brand principle, brand personality, core values, story, these tools or these instruments are really the facets. And so you could go around that gemstone and peer into it from these different faces. You're looking at the same thing. You're just looking at it from a little different perspective.
Yeah.
And the result of these different perspectives is that they can be useful to the brand leader in different ways. So some of these, again, if I had my little picture here, I would also have some arrows pointing, internally and externally off of these brand frames, like the brand story. Well, the brand story can be used internally and externally. The brand principle, we mostly use that internally. Sometimes it kind of leaks out externally, but it's really mostly about our employees and about giving them a North Star. Brand personality is going to be mostly pointed outward. No, it can point in. It's going to work okay with the employees, but the brand personality is mostly about conveying yourself to your publics, to your customers.
Right.
So these these facets of this gemstone or these dimensions of this brand are useful in multiple ways with multiple audiences.
Yeah. Love that. Dude, you are just, to be able to sit down with you just for a little bit of time, amazing. My next question really is like, who are you? Who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you take me back in time to like little Martin days? Did you know that you were destined to be the absolute wizard of all things brand and living your brand, or what was it like?
Far from it. I have a friend who wrote a book called I can't remember what she titled it. She's actually a really smart brand strategist in Seattle, Lynn Parker. She wrote a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur or The Reluctant Entrepreneur.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've often thought that described me quite well because growing up, I will say, Casey, far from it, probably the polar opposite of what you described, in that this would be my burning passion to grow up and be this and do this. By the time I got to college, I was kind of
Where'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up in Arkansas? Or?
Yeah, Arkansas. Yeah, Northwest Arkansas. It's funny, little farm, little gentleman's farm out west of town, about 15, 16 miles. And my mom was the daughter of a farmer, so she really thought it was important for her kids to grow up on a farm where there'd be pigs and chickens and horses and cows and a big garden. So we grew up working pretty hard in the garden and getting up at 5 a.m. to milk the cows and then drive into town for 6 a.m. swim practice. And
dang,
I think that farm, being reared on a farm is good for a kid. It definitely teaches them a work ethic. Every kid should grow up on a farm, regardless of whether they ever become a farmer or something else. So we grew up out there. My mom was a nurse and a school teacher. My dad was a college biochemistry professor. By the time I got to college, Casey, I ended up in chemistry because it was easy for me. I had a knack for it. Yeah. My big brother's a chemical engineer. My dad was a chemistry professor. I guess I sort of had it in my genes, but I wasn't really enjoying the material. I couldn't really envision myself being being a chemist. Like, what am I going to do with this chemistry degree? This was about the time that I encountered Melissa, who became my wife and is my business partner at Thoma Thoma. This will be one of the early influences that she's had on my life. But I was talking with her about my disaffection with chemistry, but I didn't really know what to do. Well, what do you like to do? Well, I like to write, and I've gotten some recognition for it. She's like, well, you ought to come over to the journalism department because that's where people learn how to write and explore a career in writing. So I followed her over to journalism and then the English department. So I got a double degree in journalism and English because I wanted to write. And ultimately that kind of led me into advertising copywriting after working in some newspapers. And I got into some ad agencies as a copywriter. And then we got to a certain point in our careers that Melissa was pregnant with our first child and she quit to become a freelance graphic designer. She built a little practice in that design. And about a year and a half in or so, she was getting really busy. She had this baby she was trying to care for. She was trying to run this freelance practice. I was moonlighting for her clients, writing. Wow. And she's like, hey, Martin, I don't think I can keep doing this. Either you should quit your job and join me in the practice, or I should probably just throw in the towel and just focus on this kid. I was like, well, let's try it. And at that point, I quit my job, and we had a little creative firm, right? I'm a writer. She's a designer. We're in business. And, Casey, we never really looked back from that.
Wow, man, it's crazy. Every now and then you go one direction. Then, man, I'm so glad she was able to say, hey, chemical equations. By the way, my daughter, she's doing a workbook right now for summertime, and she's going into 6th grade. And they're having her do a little chemical equation. I'm having to explain it to her, thinking, man, I didn't learn this when I was in 6th grade. What's going on here? But man, I love that you saw that. We're like, there's something else here for me. And then you sort of listened. And of course, your wife sounded pretty convincing. She got you over there to that department. I'm sure you never looked back.
Yeah. It's been a good ride. Yeah. So we started out really as I'm going to say a boutique design firm. Sure. But over time, we recognized that we needed to differentiate because we needed to compete better against, who were 2 or 3, maybe 4-person band by that time. And we were competing with agencies that were 20, 30, 50 people, at the, big shops,
Sure.
or other 2 and 3 man bands. We're like, we've got to, like, what makes us tick? How are we different? And
Right.
so our early work in figuring out how to develop brands was actually in the laboratory or the sandbox of our own business. And so as we really took ourselves through that process of discernment, we recognized that, one thing that over this, we maybe been in business for 5 or 10 years at that point, what we realized is, what we're actually really good at is finding the uniques in our clients' organizations, packaging that, codifying it, and articulating, communicating it. And still at this point, we were really pretty much a creative shop. Sure. But as we went through that process of discernment, we recognized, well, that's actually brand work. So let's lean into that and figure out everything we possibly can about how brands tick, and then see if we can, sort of reverse engineer that, for our clients, and build a methodology by which we can help our clients do the same thing, differentiate, codify, clarify, and communicate. And that was really the early genesis of what ultimately became our brand navigator process. So as we developed it and leaned into it, Casey, and I think any organization will do this, and we'll say the same. Hey, on day one, we weren't all there.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Right. Every business. I mean,
you figured it out.
With so many. Yeah. You're talking with so many entrepreneurs and leaders. We're all inventing it. We're all creating it, right. And it's never finished. So that was kind of the evolution. Then we really needed to find our own unique, and in doing so, we recognized that, well, it's this brand development and brand leadership. And then in time, we really came to realize that the power of powerful brands lies not so much in their communications, not that it's not important, but it's not really the juice that drives the brands to dominance, predominance and dominance. It's actually elsewhere. It's in the customer service. It's in the culture. It's in these softer, more amorphous, but still manageable and influenceable aspects of the business that success lies. So let's lean into that. Let's help our clients. Figure out how to develop that. And it's really out of that understanding then that we've continued to explore and develop and execute on efforts like, hey, let's build brand culture. Let's build brand councils of your with your employees. Let's build internal reward and recognition programs that align with your brand and your culture. Yeah. Let's infuse your customer experience with the essence of the brand. Let's bake that into your sales process so that we did all this work marketing the brand and getting people to sales. Let's make sure that the customers continue to experience the brand all the way through the sales process and then into service. So it's really quite it's a whole ocean. We can just wade into it, or we can get out there and swim in it, or we can get a ocean liner and, get out in the deep water. There's all kinds of degrees to which an organization can fruitfully explore this discipline.
And the ocean is deep as it can go.
Right.
But deciding to go in it, I think, and to your point about leadership, needing to decide we're going to go in this, and then this is going to be work that we're going to be continuing to add to for every year that we're here, and we're deciding to do this. It's not like we're going to solve it this month.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, Casey. Yeah.
So on that note of the journey and the step and this amazing path you followed, who should be reaching out to you? Who are the right people? The fact that when you mentioned that you're going to help figure out the uniques, I was just like, here, take my checkbook, because that part does seem daunting. And the idea of, having the brains in there, having the brain trust, but also not just the execs, but, a team like yours, who's the right size company
Yeah.
type? Who
Yeah.
should be reaching out to you?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, we generally work for ambitious, aggressive, growth oriented companies, right? To
Yeah.
make these investments, it's an investment, right? I mean,
Yeah.
to do this well, it's going to take some time and it's going to take some money. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's going to take some
Right.
investment on the part of the CEO and the C-suite. It's not a huge, it's not debilitating, but
Right.
like if the C-suite's not invested, if you're just going to say, hey, marketing, it's your CMO, it's your deal. You're not going to build one of these kinds of
No,
brands
really
that
not.
we're describing.
Really not.
You're going to have some nice programs, and they're going to be, they're going to speak with a unified voice. You're going to do a lot of really good work, but you're not going to likely develop a brand leadership driven company because it takes the entire C-suite and the CEO. So companies that are really, that are really serious about growth and are about, really capturing, claiming some, significant market share gains, that are interested in willing to consider how could we use this discipline to inform our culture. Casey, we find with our clients that really eat all of the cooking, they transform their organizations. This is a transformational discipline. It's cool. We just love it when we're getting to work with a company like that.
Oh yeah. Man, you must have had shivers or tingles when you heard that pull up a chair thing finally materialize.
Yeah.
Get that buy-in.
Yeah. It's tremendous. So, so companies like that, as I mentioned, we're not niched in a particular category, though. I will say that we've got a lot of experience in financial services and healthcare. These are domains that this kind of work can be really important, very, very differentiating.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of experience working with companies that deliver services at the home. So that's a really when you have people calling on customers' homes, that's a pretty freaking important place to have a good game, right? Man. A good game. You're knocking on my door. You're coming into my house. You're coming into my yard. That's so
man,
we help those companies get customers and keep companies.
Yeah, get my house dirty at your own peril.
Yeah, right. So those are those are good. We work with companies all over the U.S. and the larger footprint they have, the more we can help them. That our clients have been companies that serve a state or a region, as well as companies that serve national footprint or even international. I mentioned financial services, healthcare, fintech, financial services, technology is another space that we're really deep in. And again, there's I believe there's no end and no limits to the type of organization that this discipline can apply well to and can make a difference. Because Casey, at the end of the day, this entire discipline is simply rooted in human nature and how we're wired up as humans, as emotional beings.
Yeah.
We make decisions with our emotions. We use our reason to justify the decisions that we've already made. And your customers need your brand as much or more than you do, because brands save mental real estate. They help us decide. They help us align and affiliate. And so we as humans are simply wired for this. We need this.
We do.
So your customer needs your brand. And that, really, that means that not like nonprofits, for-profits, big companies, little companies, everybody can be successful with this discipline if they're interested and willing and committed to it.
So good, man. So good. Where if people want to reach out to you, learn more about the company, your book, tell us where you're at. What kind of social platforms?
You can always find me at thomathoma.com.
Okay.
That's my last name twice. My last name and Melissa's last name, thomathoma.com. You can email me at martin@thomathoma.com.
Okay.
And you know, and that website's probably a good jumping off point for, you know, for social media connections and
Perfect.
other connections.
Perfect. In the book,
Book's
Branding
called
Like the Big
Branding
Boys.
Like the Big Boys. Yes, for sale on Amazon.com. That's probably the best place to get it.
And that brand navigator system, that's when they're signing, they're working with you. They're getting
That's our
access.
consulting. That's our proprietary consulting
Awesome.
process that is about, you know, the end result of that is this brand strategy and these brand leadership frames that we spent so much time talking about today, Casey.
You know, and that sounds like a unique, sustainable advantage right there. That navigator system. So that sounds like
That's what we try to hang our hat on. Yeah. We feel like we're the only ones that do that particular thing.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Martin, thank you so much for coming on here. I have literally learned so much from you today, and it's such a pleasure. I know we've chatted, and if you look at the clock, the time is just warped by.
I know time went fast. Yeah. Time went fast today. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're a great interviewer, great questions. I appreciate the time and the invitation. I've really enjoyed it, Casey. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And, you know, for those listening, if you've learned something, and I freaking know you have, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here. I ran out of space on this paper. I don't know if you can see, like, I'm writing in the margins. I'm drawing pictures. I just learned so much. If the USA, you know, the USA acronym, the best brands use it to inform what they do. It's leadership, not marketing. The uniques, this navigator system, all these things. If you are listening to this and you learned one thing, share this episode with someone else, one person, 9 people, 4,000 people. That's thought leadership, getting it into someone else's hands. Maybe you'll help their brand out big time by them listening to this thing. So again, Martin, thank you again for being on here.
Delightful. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. This has been another really powerful, really awesome episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll catch you all next time.